Alright, here I am again with another Genshin Impact video. Today, this is going to be a video guide on tips and tricks on how to clear floor 11 and floor 12 of the new Spiral Abyss. I'm going to be having my gameplay just running in the background, and I'm going to be talking over it and adding some commentary. So we're going to have 3 runs going. We're going to have one of floor 11 using only 4 stars. We're going to have one of floor 12 using only 4 stars, and then we're going to have one of floor 12 using 5 stars as well as 4 stars. The only 5-star that I'm using on my 4-star teams is a Aquila Favonia on Bennett because I was too lazy to take it off for the sake of this video. Aside from that, all my characters are medium to high investment, which should be like reasonably within reach of you guys. And besides, I'm doing this with 4-star characters, so if you guys have access to your 5-star characters, hopefully, you know, the power level kind of evens out, and you'll be able to clear this abyss, you know, just as easily as I did. So in general, I feel like this abyss is significantly easier than the previous abyss if you have the correct characters and correct elements built, and you kind of understand and know what you're doing and know how to play this game. It's less of a DPS check, and as long as you have, you know, the correct elements and you know how to do reactions, it should be easier than before. Alright, so with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. I'm gonna have my gameplay going, and I'll add some commentary. So the teams that I'm using are, for my 4-star teams right now, are an Overload comp and a Freeze comp. These two comps are kind of like my favorite go-to comps when I'm doing 4-star only challenges. So we're going to start off with floor 11, chamber 1, which is a defend the monolith floor, which requires a little more skill and is less of a raw DPS check. You got to pay more attention to what the enemies are doing and which enemies are aggroing the monolith, because as you notice, there's no actual time requirements. You're only graded on how much HP the monolith has once you've killed everything. So you want to be aware of which enemies are aggroing the monolith, and you want to take care of them. Some enemies will aggro you, and that's fine, as long as they're not hitting the monolith. It's often going to be the ranged enemies that are going to be targeting the monolith, so you definitely want to take care of them first. If you look at what enemies there are on each half, I believe there's only 6 ranged enemies on the first half of Chamber 1, but there's like 10 ranged enemies on the second half of Chamber 1. So if you have a CC unit like Venti or Kazuha or Sucrose, you definitely want to put them on the second half, which makes life a whole lot easier, as you'll see in just a bit. Also notice how, since there's no time requirement, you can actually take your time and make sure that your energy is topped off for the next chambers. Notice how I position Sucrose's burst, and I try to throw it into the middle of everyone, you know, towards the monolith, to make sure that it sucks up as many people as possible. It does seem like really common sense, and I would think most people know to do that, but I mean, whew, I've seen some shit, man. Alright, so moving on to Chamber 2. This chamber is filled with Pyro and Electro Slime, so my team isn't exactly the best equipped to deal with it, because, you know, half my team is going to be useless against half the enemies. But, you know, I think my characters are kind of geared and strong enough that I can kind of just ball my way through it and clear fast enough anyways. If your characters aren't, though, there's no shame in kind of leaving the Spiral Abyss and swapping your teams, because you only need to get 3 stars on each chamber once. And if you restart it, you'll still have all of your stars. Oh, and here I want to say a little something about target selection. So the Fatui become really tanky when they have their elemental armor up. So normally you're going to want to carry bring a character with you that can break that elemental armor. So for example, those pyro gunslingers, you need water to break their shields. But if you focus them down and kill them before they put their armor up, you don't need to, you know, you're not going to get slowed down by not having the correct element on your team. Freeze teams are really good, guys. You should build a freeze team if you haven't already. Freeze teams are kind of cheating when we're fighting the Fatui. If you haven't already built Xingqiu, you should. It's probably one of the, if not the best hydro applicators in the game. At least off-field hydro applicators. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Kokomi's up there too, but yeah, Xingqiu's a very good character. Okay, and then finally, Chamber 3. This is kind of just go ham. Yeah, this one is probably the most kind of DPS check-like chamber, sorry. Just, you know, understand your own team composition, understand how to get your damage out, and then just go ham boning, you know? So make sure you have your buffs up before you get your damage out. So I'm being sure to make sure Bennett's buff is up so I can snapshot that attack buff onto my Fischl and my Beidou. So we're doing big deeps. Actually, I'm snapshotting onto the entire team with Shangling included, so. Oh, and another example of snapshotting buffs, I have C6 Diona, so she's passing 200 points of Elemental Mastery onto my Sucrose, and I'm making sure Sucrose picks that up before she drops her burst and starts those fat Elemental Mastery swirls. Dude, Sucrose is such a good character, what the hell? And there we go, that's about it. That's going to be floor 11, nice and easy. And we can move on to floor 12. So floor 12 is where we're going to see that, oh, do you have a character of a specific element built? Check. I'd highly recommend an Electrocharge team for the first half, and the elements that I'd strongly recommend for the second half are going to be Cryo and Anemo, and we'll see that in a little bit. So as you can see, there's a little pyro thing releasing pulses coming out from the center of the floor. That kind of gives all of the enemies on the floor this pyro armor, which increases their knockback resistance and significantly reduces the amount of damage they take. So in order to get rid of that, you need to hit them with some hydro damage, which is why I strongly recommend bringing a hydro character onto this half. I don't play this team a lot, or maybe not with these character positions. Maybe I should just swap out, put Bennett on position 1, because then it'd be more like a Sucrose Taser team. Anyways, some of the rotations and character swaps here are very inefficient, so, you know, it's probably not the thing you should be taking notes on for this video. As some of you might be aware, the two big samurai towards the end of floor 12, chamber 1, have a revive mechanic. Well, not really a revive mechanic, but if you don't kill the two samurai at the same time, the surviving samurai is going to regenerate like half its health. which, you know, is kind of annoying. But again, the DPS check limits on floor 12 here are significantly lower than on previous floors, so even if one of them procs a heal, I wouldn't worry too much about it. In fact, in this run, the heal does go off. Okay, and moving on to Chamber 2, it's just 2 Ruin Guards. So what you can do is you can just wait in the middle and let them come to you, and they'll automatically group themselves. Now, if you noticed, like on the previous half where there was a pyro pulsing thing in the middle, there's now an electro pulsing thing in the middle. So this electro armor can be cleansed or removed with either cryo or pyro. So that's why it's good to have a cryo team for this half. Alright, and we cut a little bit close, but you know, I am using only 4-star characters. And my Kyle is using a Lion's Roar in this run, so I don't even have a weapon passive on my Kaya. So again, if you're using 5-star characters, hopefully it shouldn't be that bad for you. Okay, and moving on to Chamber 2. This floor is about as close to the just mindlessly DPS and kill people floor as it's gonna get. For the most part, the Whopper flowers are going to burrow towards you, so you don't have to worry too much about grouping them up, so hopefully it won't be that bad. You know, C6 Fischl is a surprisingly competent driver of this taser comp. You don't need Sucrose in order to make this work. I think I've also tried using Diona instead of Bennett, and it works pretty good. Alright, and then Chamber 2 second half is where I strongly recommend to bring in Anemo characters, such as Sucrose, Kazuha, Venti, you know, something of the sort. So we have to fight 3 of these Abyss guys, and I'll try and show you why you want an Anemo character. In the meanwhile, notice how I'm kind of knocking the enemies towards each other, right? Whichever direction I'm hitting one of these enemies in, it's always towards the other two. And I'm kind of trying to keep their HPs relatively even so we can proc all of their shields at once. Now, what takes the most time to kill these Abyss people is not actually taking out the initial HP bar, but I believe actually taking care of their elemental shields takes significantly more time. So this is why it's really important to bring an Anemo character here, because Anemo Swirl does bonus damage to their shields, and if you have all 3 of these people grouped up like this, and you go ahead and proc some swirls, the shield elements will actually swirl onto each other, and that'll do bonus damage, and it'll start killing everyone real quick. Also, Cryo is a good element for this floor because Cryo is going to do some damage to all 3 of their shields. And just like that, right? See, Anemo swirls, everyone goes down around the same time, which is really nice. Alright, so for the last chamber, we have to fight 2 of these Pyro Abyss guys, which is, again, one of the reasons I strongly recommended bringing Electro Charge. There's actually a grouping tech for these 2 that I forgot about until afterwards, and that is you can run to the corner and kind of have the Abyss people group themselves. Maybe I'll show a video of it towards the end. But aside from that, yeah, so long as you have enough Hydro and Electro application, these 2 should go down in a relatively, you know, close enough time frame. Alright, and then finally, floor 12, chamber 3, we have to fight these Hydro Abyss dudes. Since these guys are melee, you don't have to really think of any super special grouping tech. They're gonna come to you, don't have to worry about it too much. That being said, it does help to have an Anemo character like that to group them up quite nicely. Yeah, just go ahead and DPS them down, and once they proc their Hydro Shields, it is a relatively straightforward task to keep them permafrozen with, you know, 3 Cryo characters and Sucrose. And that is going to be it. So that is floor 12 using only 4-star characters. Right now, as I said before, it is nowhere near as much of a DPS check as before, but it is a do you have this specific element built check. So long as you have that, should be, you know, pretty easy. Alright, and then finally it's going to be the 5-star character run, which is, as you can imagine, a little bit easier and a little bit faster, quite a bit easier and faster than my 4-star only run. So on my first team, I like to nickname this team called Unlimited Blade Works, because you got Raiden and Xingqiu. I think these 2 do a lot of damage together. And you also have Kazuha, which is another source of, you know, weeb samurai shit. So the comp works by having Kazuha swirling both Hydro and Electro, allowing Raiden and Xingqiu to both do beak damage. And the comp is rounded out with Zhongli providing shielding as a defensive option, an extra bit of CC with the burst, and resistance shred to, you know, increase more damage. And on the second half, we got the good old Morgana comp. Now, I don't play this comp a whole lot, so my rotations aren't that clean or that perfect. But, you know, since every enemy on this side of the floor can be frozen, and there's, you know, more than one of them, it still performs pretty good. And back to Chamber 2, where all you need is kill. Now we're going to see Morgana doing a much better job of grouping these enemies on this floor, mainly because one, Venti Suction is better at grouping than Sucrose's Suction is, and we actually have some Hydro characters so we can freeze and CC them. Damn, Venti is sucking them up real good. So you can kind of see how quickly they're dying, because Venti's Anemo Swirling is just shredding their shields. Oh, one final note, the elemental shields require elements to break them. So, as you see here, I'm sticking on Mona to try and apply as much Hydro as I can to break the shield. I don't need to switch to Ganyu or Venti because their elements aren't going to break this Pyro shield as efficiently as Mona's Hydro is. Also know that Mona's dash can apply a tiny bit of Hydro as well, similar to Ayaka's dash, so you can actually use the dash to break the shields of these Abyss people, which is kind of funny in my opinion. Alright, and then again, my advice for this floor, when you're hitting them, make sure to be knocking them towards each other so they remain, you know, like relatively grouped. Oh, this right here is a misclick. My brain fart. I forgot what I was doing. And then this last chamber here is kind of just Ganyu privilege, right? Ganyu, Diona, Venti, providing plenty of cryo and shield shred to make killing these Abyss people pretty straightforward and easy. Alright, so that is going to be that. That is floor 11 and floor 12 of the new Spiral Abyss. Nice and done. Hopefully you guys learned something. Like I said, this floor is less of a DPS check and more of a elements and knowledge check. So that's stuff that you can improve yourself on right now without having to change anything or any of the numbers or roll for artifacts or suffer through RNG on any of your characters. If you improve your ability to clear this abyss, that's you improving. That's not your characters improving. That is you improving. So go out there and go get them.